Snaking its way through the countryside of Southern Virginia, this beautiful 3.2-mile strip of asphalt has been around since 1957. But now, for the second time in 3 years, the Virginia International Raceway is home to the SCCA National Championship Runoffs.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a somewhat dry Virginia International Raceway. As this unique weekend continues here, it is the SCCA's 59th running of their SCCA Runoffs, our broadcast presented by Mazda. And so great to have you all with us. I'm Greg Creamer, Tom O'Gorman alongside, and Hayward Wagner down in the pit lane. And these are the cars we're going to be seeing coming out here, and they're called B-Spec. And two things. There were rumors a few years ago that this class was on the decline, might go away. As the old saying goes, the rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. This class is flourishing, and with good reason. And I think this is the reason. And, you know, Tom, I've been wondering for years, what does the B in B-Spec stand for? And I finally come to the conclusion it's bang for your buck. Because in terms of the amount of money you have to spend in a fairly expensive sport, and the amount of fun you have on the racetrack in these, you know, that ratio, this just blows it out of the water.
It really is. And not only that, but the amount it teaches you. These cars are the cars that do the least for you in any SCCA racing. Modern subcompact hatchbacks, for the most part, one sedan in the field, but very little modifications, very little basically money and knowledge needed to really run a competitive program. So it trains the driver and it trains everybody around in their orbit to manage a race team and manage what it takes to run at these runoffs in club racing.
Vastly underpowered by design, and that teaches you how to drive momentum, which serves you through the rest of your career, wherever that may take you. Third member of our team is Hayward Wagner, and I'll tell you what, lunch break is done. We're looking forward to this one. One of the biggest fields, Hayward.
Absolutely. I'm going to go on record, guys. B-Spec is cool. Walking up and down this grid, looking at the cars, looking at the tires people are running. Yeah, we can talk about it being affordable. We can talk about not having a lot of knowledge, needing a lot of knowledge to set them up. These are just cool little cars, and this is going to be a great race. We got a couple of minis on the front row. We've got a quadrillion-time national champion and a Chevy in the third spot. And then we've got a whole bunch of guys that really want to get on this podium, really want to have a good showing. A couple of things to watch for. The track right now, probably the driest it's been since, I don't know, the last time they were on it in qualifying. The race is up before now. They've really had to make tire decisions. This is a no-brainer dry track situation. There are some wet patches off here and there. The one thing that's been talked about the most in this grid is getting through turn one on the first lap. And I might even project there'll be a bit of a bottleneck because the front row is very focused on getting through there clean. So watch for the back of the pack as we get into turn one.
Yeah, that's going to be the fascinating part in these cars. They don't have any qualms going into turn 1, 5, 6 abreast. I mean, you know, they got fenders. They're going after it here. This is always one of the most entertaining races. One, just because you can see the fun that they're having out there. But because of the way the cars work, they're always in big clumps. And the toe here, it's going to be big.
It is, and it's one of the only classes where we have drafting and multi-make racing. So we have everything from Mini Coopers, Chevy Sonics, Mazda 2, Honda Fit. We have a Toyota Yaris in the field, as well as Ford Fiestas. Those cars are all different enough that they make speed in different ways, even though they're all prepped for the same class here.
And let's take a look at this track. 3.27 miles, 17 turns, and the three different sectors are all very different.
They are, and that's where those multi-makes are going to come in. So let's talk about the first sector, kind of the chassis section. We need a lot of mechanical grip to get through turns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lots of transitions, and lowest speed sector here with the heaviest braking zone, a great passing opportunity at turn 1. Then we move into sector 2 in the uphill S's. Let's call this the balance section, if you will. We're going to want a little bit better top speed. We're going to want some stability in these cars. Something we'll talk about right after is tire temperatures on those first laps. But flat out easy, very easily up the 7, 8, 9 S's through South Bend with barely a lift into Oak Tree. Incredibly critical exit at turn 12 in these low-powered cars into our quote-unquote high-speed sector, where a couple of the cars with better gearing, better aero are going to come into effect, down towards roller coaster at turns 13 and 14, and then a big drop into Hog Pen, which has been a very, very, even less so forgiving corner now that it's all mud and water out there.
Exactly. It's never been a friendly corner. It's a great challenge, but boy, it has been downright diabolical. But now that this track, as Hayward was pointing out, is drying up a little bit, these are, you know, they're all all on the dry tires. If we don't get rain during the if we do get rain, it could get even more fun. But if we don't, this is going to be a show.
And this is one of those tracks that's in a kind of odd shape that covers a lot of ground. It's totally possible to rain in one little spot. We've seen it happen already this weekend, then another spot. But they're all the cars rolling off. Applause from the grid workers to take to the track for a very exciting national championship race.
Let's take a look at our starting lineup. One of the bigger fields here, starting in 30th, the 46 of Kara Barron, and the Honda Fit starting in 29th, the number 94 of Ryan Clotterty out of Sanford, North Carolina, and the Mini Cooper starting 28th. The number 16, Sherry Storms out of British Columbia. Great to have her make this trip all the way down here in her Mazda 2, starting in the 27th spot. The 138 of Stephanie Anderson in the X Factor Racing Mazda 2, starting 26th. The 189 of Tom Hobson from Powell, Ohio, in the Honda Fit, starting 25th. The 00 of George Badger from Pendleton, Indiana, in a Honda Fit. Starting in the 24th spot, the number 85, Dan Hardison out of Delaware, Ohio, in a Honda Fit, starting 23rd. The number 3, JB Swan in the RNS Redco Chevy Sonic. Starting in the 22nd spot, the number 23, Thomas Tremper out of Painted Post, New York, in the Mini Cooper, started 21st. The 87 of Blair Diffenbach out of Sylvia, North Carolina, in the Honda Fit, starting 20th. The 27 of Matthew Fees out of Steamboat, Colorado, in a Mini Cooper, starting 19th. The 86 of Anthony Ruddy, he runs out of Jackson, New Hampshire, in the Chevy Sonic, starting in the 18th spot. The 44, Dave Rosenblum out of Mays Landing, New Jersey, in the Leo's Apparel Ford Fiesta, starting 17th. The number 21, Daniel Dennehy out of Pittsburgh, in the Honda Fit, starting 16th. The number 40, Stuart Black out of Greensboro, North Carolina, in the Chevy Sonic, starting 15th. The 36, Matt Downing out of Canal, Winchester, Ohio, in a Honda Fit, starting 14th. The number 43, and the guy who won here in 2019 at this track in the runoffs, John Phillips, who finished second at Indy last year out of Sealy, Texas, in his Toyota Yaris. Starting 13th is the number 13, Corey Ruth out of Menchaca, Texas, in the Mini Cooper. Starting 12th, the number 8 of Ryan Moran from Lyndhurst, Virginia, in a Mini Coupe. Starting in the 11th spot, the number 9, Dan Sheehy out of Arley, Alabama, in the Mini Cooper. Starting 10th, the 52 of Matt Jufrey out of Chelsea, Michigan, in the Ford Fiesta. Starting 9th, the number 14, Connor Kelleher out of Angleton, Texas, in the Mini Cooper. Starting 18th, the number 22, Riley Salyer, out of Longview, Texas, in the Mazda 2, starting 7th. The 103 of Alex Ratcliffe out of Leesburg, Virginia. Talk about a home track, Mini Cooper for him. Starting 6th, the number 80 of Ryan Schoen out of Austin, Texas, in the Mazda 2. 5th is the 99, Rob Pikarczyk out of Brunswick, Ohio, in the Honda Fit. And you're outside of the second row, starting 4th, the number 7, Matt Wolf out of Waterford, Michigan, in the Team Effort Motorsports Mazda 2. Starting 3rd, your defending champion, David Daugherty. He's got a few championships in his trophy case, 11, I think, overall, with 16 medals total. He's out of McCordsville, Indiana, in the Chevy Sonic. And your front row is, Tom alluded to, all Mini Cooper. On the outside is the yellow 11 of Richard Roman out of Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, in the RP Performance and Performance Auto Work 2009 Mini Cooper. And on the pole, his first ever, the number 12 of Steve Introne out of Windham, New Hampshire, the Valachi Engines Black Hawk Beer, and the Mose MB Mini Cooper, a 2010 model, a 222.945 was his fast lap here, and a good job. He was 3rd last year at Indy, by the way, and got fastest lap in that race. And for Steve, this is going to be his 5th start here in runoffs.
So those top 2 minis, the red and green of Introne and Ronan, were in perfect lockstep every qualifying session. Those are the only 2 that I believe truly executed a great team strategy starting this week. Those cars are going to be looking to continue that trend, but the biggest challenge on this opening lap is going to be rear tire temperatures. A lot of times these cars need a little bit of tire pressure and a little bit of basically setup with the ride heights to make the cars rotate, and those can be very much a handful when you don't have any temperature in the rear tires. That would be the biggest issue I see going down into turn 1.
That's a good point. A lot of people with a front drive car don't always consider the fact you still need the rears to work to have a little stability. Otherwise, you point in and you're just going around. So we're going to see how it plays out. But here we go, down through that corner called Hogpen. Our Mazda, the official pace vehicle of the runoffs, makes its way off and into pit lane, and Introne and Ronan coming down that front straight with David Daugherty inside of that second row. And again, he is the defending champion and one of the best ever at the runoffs in virtually any category. And here we go, looking for the green. This goes 15 laps or 35 minutes. Let's see how that one plays out. Big field, green flag flies, we're green, and racing to the gold at B-Spec here at the runoff. And Introne eases ahead, but look at Daugherty. Gets up on the inside of Ronan, and if he can just stay put there, might be able to make it. Look, now he makes a late move Almost a touch. How did they not touch? I'm not sure. But Daugherty, they're still there. They're 3 abreast, Tomo, at the midpoint of turn 1 and 2. That's incredible stuff. And Daugherty might just come out with the lead, although Introne's going to fight hard here. And I think Introne now is going to make it work. And look at that. Richard Ronan comes back, and it's like they started.
Start of the race, Riley Salyer and the red Mazda 2 up from, I think, is that 8th on the grid to 4th. A spectacular start for the solid red car there in 4th. But Daugherty with the torquiest car, that silver Chevy Sonic, really wanted to kind of push up to the lead. That was great respect and great racing between those top 3 in turn 1.
Yeah, I mean, he easily could have just knocked Introne or Ronan around, and I don't think there was any contact. They made it work, let it settle. But yeah, that was a mega start from Riley Salyer, the driver from Texas, as the field now makes its way for the first time into the climbing S's. And this is just so fun. They just run just line astern, this big snake working all the way through here.
Minimum speed 95 miles per hour there at South Bend. Maybe not on lap 1, but eventually as the two quote-unquote teammates trying to start to work together, Salyer is going to put the pressure on the back of Daugherty, and those top 4 pulling away just a little bit from Rob Karchik and the rest into Oak Tree.
And you talked about this is the turn, and it's really a double apexer, right? It's counted as 2 turns, 11 and 12, but you drive it as 1, and the less power you have, the better your exit out of this turn has to be.
It really is, and that was a big move from Dan Dennehy down the inside of John Phillips. We saw that black Honda Fit up the inside of the Toyota Yaris. Kept it clean as Dennehy now shoving up down the back straightaway, and more bump drafting for those top 2.
Yeah, well, as you said, they're going to want to try and just make a break, using each other to draft with each other and move away. We'll see what happens here. Nice move there by the 103 of Alex Ratcliffe. And touch right there as the 36 just giving a little tap. Matt Downing to the back of the number 7 there, Matt Wolf, he's the one who had a real tough start and fell back as Salyer came forward.
He did. He just kind of got floundered out to the outside, as did the 52 of Matt Jufrey. A little wiggle in that Ford Fiesta. Really got away with one in turn 1. He was 2 off and still didn't succumb to the grass.
All right, everybody now completing lap number 1 of, as we said, 15 here. And just this pack already. Everybody trying to find their partner at this stage. Because it's dry track, and you're going to need somebody to race with here if you're going to be able to stay with or catch this front bunch. And you can already see the 11 there of Ronan. He is just carrying his momentum, and then as soon as he gets back behind, he tucks in and gives Introne just a little bit of a tap and lets him know, okay, I'm with you, buddy, let's do it. And they're going to play that card, but man, it is tough to drop Daugherty.
Still about top 7 breakaway, but the reason those top 2 work together, it works so well, they're the same car. You think about the draft versus a different car that you're following. It really is best to lock into the same car in front of you, not only for the aero shape, but for the way you make speed. And those 2 Mini Coopers are going to have the easiest job working together, whereas the rest of the top 7 there, they're not following the same car.
Well, I think you brought up a really good point. One, every car, every make of car has its own unique characteristics, so working together. But you also talked about gearing. You can't just tear these gearboxes apart and drop the gearing in. So some cars are just better at other tracks than others, and you come to the runoffs and you're hoping yours works.
Look at Daugherty through South Bend. The Sonic really has the top end up through those S's, kind of challenging to the outside, filling the mirrors of Richard Ronan in 2nd place. But Daugherty has the most experience. He's got national championships in Honda Fits, in Mini Coopers. He used to race the Nissan Versa. Now he's in the Sonic. He's raced a little bit of everything, so he has a good understanding of how that car is going to make speed, probably better than anybody else.
Remembering him winning showroom stock B championships in the runoffs in a Nissan 200 SX. I mean, he goes back a ways, and the man can drive, no question about it. And he's just glued to those 2 up front. Then it's Salyer, just a little tick back, but he's got Rob Pekarchik all over the back of him, too, in that almost teal or turquoise colored car as well. There is Riley. You see the nose there, Pekarchik. And tell you what, there are spots where that lead trio eases away from those guys, and then, as you said, they get into an area where that Mazda 2 is really, really agile. Boom, he's right there.
Yeah, the Mazda 2 in 4th, and that Honda Fit of Rob Pekarchik there with the really cool Goodyear livery. Spec Hankook tire, but we don't need to talk about it. The cool Goodyear livery on that car. Those 2 are kind of considered the best handling cars in the class, so they're really not in a great spot to roll those speed through the corners, where the cars in front, Minis, good all-rounders. The Sonic is best off the corners, as you see David Daugherty always digs up close to those 2 minis off exits.
And there's that little bit of a gap of about a second back to Introne running in the 6th spot in the number 6, or in the number 80, excuse me, and then Connor Kelleher in the 7th spot. There they are. They'll just pop into view. And then a little gap behind them as well, back to Alex Ratcliffe in the number 103 Mini Cooper. But the proverbial blanket right now covers our top 5.
And this will probably kind of stay this way until someone's willing to risk their race to start a battle. As we look a little bit further back into the field, that's the 86 battling the 85, I believe, for around the 18th position. Good run for Hardison up the inside in that 2nd gen fit to get just a big power move up through turn 2 into the apex of NASCAR.
Ooh, big lunge there, and that got really crossed up for a minute, but everybody able to make their way through. That was the number 44 of David Rosenblum, and if that name sounds familiar, he used to run in what was the forerunner of the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge now, back in the day when it was called, I think, it was a long time ago.
Tony Challenge,
maybe that. Well, no, even before that, Motorola Cup.
There you go.
And used to run Saturns in that in the inner city youth racing program. So he's been doing this for a long time. But once again, and, you can see it up there through turn 11 and 12 through Oak Tree. Those 2 minis just really roll through there beautifully. But then you launch onto this back straight, and that's where Daugherty and with that launch of that Sonic, and then the 2 behind him just sort of tucking behind.
Salyer with a great run that lap, and Pekarczyk actually sucks up to the back of the Mazda 2, so those 3 are going to make a big train. Pekarczyk looks like he's thinking about it, decides not to. Daugherty, big lunge up the inside again, filling the mirrors of Ronan.
Just hoping to maybe get Ronan to make a little mistake, just bother him in the mirrors. And, Ronan, obviously, he qualified well, but, keep in mind, he's a rookie in the runoffs. This is his first runoffs. He had a win in the Hoosier Tire Super Tour, and he also had 3 wins in the Majors program. So, he's used to running at the front, but runoffs is a whole different level of pressure. And when you've got an 11-time gold medalist filling your mirrors, it's going to make you worry a little bit. Now, Daugherty got a great run. Now, was he thinking about going around the outside, or again just getting in the mirrors here? And we'll see what happens. And down to the inside, Riley Salyer, he's not necessarily just going to wait about here. Watch what happens. Into one, Daugherty again, a little bit too tight to the inside. And that means you have to, brake a little harder, pivot the car a little more. That scrubs a little speed, and you can see that gap form.
These guys have a genius strategy in turn 1. Introne and Roman, you see Introne stays mid-track. Ronan opens up the entry, gets a really good exit, and just boom, right off the back of Introne on the exit. So Introne sacrificing turn 1 on entry to make sure Roman can get the run, and these guys have a plan.
Oh, and a really late move and a spin in the background. Oh, and we've got a car on the roof that looks like the number 52 going inverted here. That's Matthew Jouffre, just right in the middle of turn 3 and 4. And I was just about to talk about the move that it looked like a last-second pop move by Connor Kelleher on Introne. And then I caught that car going over. He's out. That's the best news. Out on his own. Full course caution. Out now for the circuit, as you might expect. And wow, that's some agility.
It really is, yeah.
That's what adrenaline will do for you.
Good to see that he's out and okay at least. But this started with a tank slap. He goes a little bit off in turn 3 just before the replay started. The car snaps once, snaps twice, and it's always the 3rd transition that makes the car go over. And that's actually the 2nd time in 2 years that specific car has ended its runoffs upside down. Last year with Fritz Wilkie, this year rewrapped, but same car, I believe, with Matt Jouffre ending his day.
Yep, just ran wide at the exit of 3, and it back end snapped, as you said. You can see then it came right back across, and as it snapped back the other way, that it dug in and around it went.
So here at the runoffs, we have 3 safety cars dispatched around, and
good.
They can actually pick up the field from any point on the track. And that's what that mid-pack Mazda was doing. Pulls off and allows the field to get collected.
It just gets everybody slowed down, then they can move as a group and join up behind the main car. And if it's something where somebody just spun, got mildly high-sided, and you put out those 3 safety cars, if that car clears quickly, you can go back to green, and you've preserved some of the quote-unquote, and I use this term, the integrity of the race at that point. But this is going to be a much longer cleanup, so getting that car on its wheels and then moved and the like, so everybody gets a little break here. So while we have this full course caution, we're going to take an opportunity here to take a little break. Thank some of the wonderful partners that help us make these broadcasts possible.
Focus, guys. We're in a race to the finish, okay?
Here's where the rubber meets the road.
These initiatives move the needle, like, at all.
Well, let's shift gears a minute.
We're really kind of at the apex here.
We need to put the pedal to the metal. We need to nail those hairpin turns, cross that finish line, and take that checkered flag. Woo!
Hit the track with the world's largest motorsports calendar, track day insurance, and more. Haggerty. Let's drive together.
Introducing the first ever Mazda CX-50.
Why race? Because it's in our blood. A love of driving that pushes us as hard on the road as it does on the track. It's why we reinvented the Roadster and put a piece of it into every car we make. It's why we refine, rethink, and refine again. And it's why we'll always engineer to your heart's BPM, not simply an engine's RPM. Why race? Why indeed?
Welcome back to Virginia International Raceway as our coverage of the 59th running of the SCCA National Championship Runoffs continues. Our coverage brought to you by Mazda. And as you can see, car inverted there. Driver's out. He's fine. That's the good news. So, Tama, let's go back and take another look at what happened.
Yeah, so we don't have the whole incident on replay, but I believe it was a solo incident. Matt Jufrey in the Ford Fiesta, they're running a little bit wide at turn 3, catching some of that mud you see at the bottom of the frame, getting a little bit of a tank slapper, 1, 2, 3. And all of us autocrossers know the third one is always when disaster strikes. And unfortunately for Matt Jufrey, they're walking back towards his car. His race did end in that disaster.
It did, and he was out right away under his own power, so that's always the best possible news, certainly, but his day is done. Of course, under a full course caution, the clock will continue to run here, and again, it is a 35-minute race or 15 laps as we have completed 4 working lap 5 at this stage, so we're a third of the way through the lap count, and it all really is going to come down to just how quickly we get that cleared up. The good news for guys like Ian Schoen, Connor Kelleher, Alex Ratcliffe, this caution, they had lost touch just a little bit with that lead group of 5. That's going to come back to them. And, you know, we've been talking a lot about David Daugherty, as you should, up in the front and his level of experience. But you know, certainly another guy to really keep an eye on who had that great start and has been really racy here is you know, Riley Salyer in that Mazda 2, and he in 2020. I mean, he won the gold in his class at Road America, so he knows how to get it done as well.
He does, and he was scrappy that year. He was willing to race. He was really, really smart with his choices, but made sure that the consequences never hung him out to dry. So I wouldn't rule that driver out. The other one right there, silver with teal, Matt Wolf, had a pretty poor start to this race, but he's another one of those drivers that had started to lose touch and can kind of get back in this thing. And the last thing we haven't talked about a whole lot is patience in B-Spec is big because the cars don't recover speed very well. They just don't have enough power to do that. So you spend a lot of time waiting, planning, and then figuring out what your move is. Well, now we have a lot less time to execute those moves. Things are going to get a little bit more action-filled, I think.
Yep, and that's, you know, really a key component of running this type of car is whenever you scrub speed for whatever reason, whatever it causes you to null that momentum, it takes you a long time to get it back. And especially if it's coming out of Oak Tree there, if you come out because of an error of some sort there, 5 miles an hour off of everybody else in front of you, you've lost that all the way until you get to the next braking zone. And so that's why it is so crucial. That's why this is such a great place to start your racing career, because, when you're racing GT1 cars and they're all at 900 horsepower, well, that momentum, if you can come out of a turn a little bit quicker than the guy in front of you, that's going to be an advantage for you. So this is a great place to learn.
Or even in contrast to that Spec Miata, which is a very similar racing style, ultimately slower cars, lots of drafting, but they are all ultimately the same. And in here we have about 7 options of cars to keep things a little bit more interesting with how you have to make your decisions and lean into your personal strengths, both as a driver and with the equipment that you have. So and when you're alluding to, you make that one mistake, you lose that momentum. Because it is a drafting class, you only get that one shot. And if you make that mistake, you could lose touch with the field.
Yeah, good point here. And also a third medalist here is John Phillips. He didn't have a great qualifying, ended up in the 14th spot. He's worked his way up into 12th, but John Phillips won here in 2019. So he's been up front at this track in the runoffs. So there are definitely some people to keep an eye on here. And Matt Wolf has got to be just beside himself. He's a great qualifying run, qualified 4th, and just got trapped. I mean, when you have a pack of cars like this, that term freight train comes into play here, and he got trained.
It's amazing how half-fast that can happen. You can have everybody wants the apex of turn 1, and the one guy that wasn't thinking about that, all of a sudden the red carpet is rolled out down the outside, and you see somebody like Riley Sallier go from 8th to 4th, and you see a driver like Matt Wolf go from 4th to 8th real quick.
Yep, just get trapped, and that is exactly how it works here. So at this stage, it's still pretty chilly out there, Tomo. They just got racing. They got some heat into the tires, and now they're bobbing and weaving a little bit, trying to make sure the tires are clean, try and get a little bit of heat into them. But essentially, other than it being single file as opposed to being side by side, this is really a race restart, and you've got to wait, patient, get those tires up to temperature before you can really push too hard, because if not, you can hurt the tires.
It's a tricky balance with these front-wheel drive cars. A lot of the cars are probably starting with rear tire pressures closer to 40 psi cold. That's to help make the car turn once that tire comes up to temperature, but it makes it a very, very skittish car on the first couple of laps. So the key here, tire management is critical for the front tires, but the rear tires are fine. So you kind of have this awkward balance of keeping the fronts happy while keeping the rears happy, and they want the opposite thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And obviously in any front-wheel drive car, the fronts are abused mercilessly because they're doing everything.
And every car in this field, front-wheel drive, taking a look at that defending champion at VIR back in 2019, the 43 of John Phillips. Only sedan in the field, and that car just hasn't quite had the pace this year in qualifying. He didn't seem to have a good teammate this year either in those qualifying sessions, but he is the last driver to win a championship at this track, kind of sitting back in the mid-pack.
And it looks like we could see that they had the car removed off into the grass of Matt Jufrey. So they're just looking at, and when you're inverted like that, sometimes you get little bits of fluid that come out, and they may need to be cleaning that up just off to the side there. But hopefully we'll be able to go back to green here, maybe even at the end of this lap. They're certainly working this lap pretty slowly right now, and I think that's exactly what they're trying to do is give everybody a chance to get that all cleaned up so we can get back to it.
Yeah, race controlling the pace a bit, and they're probably honestly just shuffling glass off at this point. I think we saw one of the windows shatter in that car at the back. But you see Introne, just a casual weave. That's not going to put a ton of temp, but just kind of keep those fronts just ready to go. Most of the field just cruising.
Yep, and got a lot of time. This is, at 3¼ miles long. This is a long track when you're just trundling around at these speeds. And that puts something into it. And I mean, this is a big field too.
It is a big field, and we're working just past half race time. We will probably be on time at this point.
I think so.
We'll have about 15, maybe 14 after the pace lap here, minutes to race.
So you mentioned that now that urgency starts to come in. The race shortened a little bit to begin with, but now definitely going to be shortened in terms of green flag time. And if you're back in the pack a little bit, if you're a Phillips, if you're a Wolf, it's go time.
Poker faces go down, and the hands come out for sure. Yep. We're going to see how much patience was David Daugherty using, how much of the teamwork was Introne and Ronan using, how much more does Riley Sallier or even Rob Pekarczyk, who was a pretty quiet force back there in 5th. Man, I don't know who I put my money on.
I know. There's so many in this category that are certainly capable of putting in some remarkable runs. Introne and Ronan. That sounds like a really, really high offer.
It does.
Daugherty third. Again, multiple champion. Salyer, a champion. Rob Pekarczyk, really quick. Ian Schoen, always been fast. Connor Kelleher, Alex Ratcliffe. I mean, there's just a great group here. And then you get back to Matt Wolff. We know he's got speed. John Phillips, you said, he certainly has the skill, but this year it just hasn't been able to get that car to click quite as well as some of the others. And they all run, it's a spec tire in this category, right?
Yeah, it's a hand-cooked race tire, similar to the Hoosier race tire that any class, a DOT race tire. So one of the things they've talked about is it does, with the pressures they try to run to make the tire work really well, it tends to fall off a little bit towards the second half of the race. Now there's not a lot of management needed because we're over half distance. So any sort of tire wear or tire fall off that is in the conversation is probably kind of out the window.
That's a really good point here as we have a look at David Rosenblum once again. Right before we go green, do those tires work better on any of those cars or worse, or are they, in this class, are they all pretty good in terms of tire effectiveness?
If they do, none of the drivers would tell me.
Well, that's I suppose
so not that I've heard.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, here we go. Getting ready to go back to green. Introne in that red number 12, leading the black number 11 of Ronan. And we are getting ready for this restart here. Watch for Daugherty. He's laid back just a little bit. You can't even see Salyer behind him. But Daugherty knows he's got a little bit more grunt. The green flag flies. We are back to racing. Elbows up time in B-Spec. And here we go. Watch for Daugherty. Did he get enough of a run to be able to do something here? You can see, Ronan kind of looking. Now Daugherty again. Late move down to the inside. Ronan having none of it. Comes across the nose. Floats out a little bit wide. Daugherty going to try and cut down underneath. See if he can stay there and do something around the outside. He might, and if he can get in between these two guys and ruin that plan, and he can't.
Look at the motor on that Sonic, though. He just showed some of his cards.
Yeah.
He's got plenty of torque to make a big move like that. And some of the other cars just don't have the torque that 80 of Ian Schoen up the inside.
What a move.
Rob Pekarczyk.
How decisive was that? That was really opportunistic, and he made it stick.
Lost a little bit of momentum coming through the second half of these S's, though. Now he's going to hold Pekarczyk up. That's a nightmare for everybody behind, which is basically the whole field.
Yeah.
Ian Schoen really, really slowing up the field. Another car off. Kind of a weird moment there in the dirt.
Yeah, that little moment for Daugherty, look how much, and that's that momentum we're talking about. We know he's got a car that's got a bit torqueier, but running offline like that, and these two now have just been able to ease out just a little bit, give themselves a little bit of breathing room. Let's see what Ian Schoen can do now. He's gone around. Pekarczyk loops it. I don't know if he got a little tap or if he just lost that on his own.
That's maybe that rear tire temperature we were talking about, and now he's just in wet grass waiting for the car to stop. Matt Wolff got away with it a little bit easier. He's kind of side by side with Dan Dennehy now. Sweeps around the outside in that black Honda Fit, but a couple of cars getting caught out, I think, with poor rear tire temperatures. Here's a look at it. Just loses it on entry, and he's along for the ride.
Yep, that was just him. And as you said, that grass so wet. And yeah, there's Matt. And looked like he had a pretty good restart, and then he loses 2-3 spots because of that. Just a tough day for Matt Wolff. But look at this little break that these two up front have been able to make here. Daugherty looking in his mirror. Salyer going nowhere. He is right there. Then Ian Schoen is running these guys down.
And that pair of Mazda 2s might be a surprise kind of power play here in the field. Now working the top 5. Those 2s are also very, very strong in the corners. Pretty good second gear, but it's a little bit tall. Ooh, a lot of work on the wheel there for Riley Salyer.
I was going to say that thing clipped that curb. You can see it start to step out just a little bit. Interesting thing with front drive, you just sort of point the wheels where you want to go and give it a little bit of power and let it pull you out of whatever incident you might be involved in at this stage. But those two minis, they're starting to make a little gap here. You wouldn't think 0.2 of a second is a lot in this class. That's huge.
It is huge, and I have to wonder, did Daugherty really only have that one shot? Was that his move and it just didn't work out? But Salyer is now all over the back of the Chevy Sonic, and then a little bit of a break until we get to this great 6th place battle.
And it is good. You can see people juking and jiving everywhere around here. And that is the 103 once again of Alex Ratcliffe leading this queue of Dan Sheehy in the 9, Kelleher again, Corey Ruth as well. working through, and this is an important corner too, 5 and 5A, because these cars will be absolutely flat through the snake, I would imagine, in the dry. So you've got to get out of those turns well, because it's basically, wouldn't they be from 5A probably to 10? They're just flat.
Yeah, just flat out, and a little lift, maybe a tap of the brake for South Bend up at the top of the S's. But this is a very, very long straightaway in these cars, even though it's not really all that straight.
In terms of how it presents on the data graph, it's straight. It's just full throttle here. And Ratcliffe looks in his mirrors, and he's got 4 cars line astern, really going after it here. Little move here by Sheehy as he opens it up, and look at this, an attempt up and around the outside by the 13 of Corey Ruth. And, let's see if he squares up underneath. No, he's just going to flow speed and had nowhere to go with it.
Oh, he's there.
Oh, he did make it work. Wow, Kelleher moved over at the perfect time for Ruth. He had all that momentum made up and had nowhere to go, and then, Kelleher just shifted over to the right, and Ruth is going, well, I thank you for that.
Yeah, gentlemanly move, certainly, for the 14 Mini Cooper, and that's brought John Phillips into that battle just a bit, too, as it looks like Ian Schoen just didn't have the raw pace to keep up with Riley Salyer and the rest. He's fallen back in 5th, but this battle for 8th is great.
Oh, it's phenomenal at this point. And again, Introne and Ronan, they've maintained that little margin up front over Daugherty. And here is the number 43. They're having their own little interesting scrap here, aren't they? That is John Phillips, the driver we talked about, that won here in 19.
And the 13 of Corey Ruth, he's just had the thing stood up on the left front through Hogpen, but it worked. Look at the momentum he carried up onto the back of Dan Sheehy in that Jump Player Special reference livery. And they're going to have a couple of black Mini Coopers linked up to try to catch. Is that chasing down Alex Ratcliffe?
I've always thought that livery on that car of Sheehy is one of the sharpest in the paddock, any class. Just looks great as he rolls into turn 1. We go back up to this, and the battle is on again as Daugherty tries those moves. And I'll tell you what, right now, Introne, he has got an absolutely exceptional wing.
It really does. They had started to pull away, and I kind of thought that battle was going to fizzle. And all of a sudden, Daugherty's back. And I think Daugherty's biggest problem is Salyer, because Salyer wants to win just as bad as Daugherty does. And having a mirror full of a driver with that attitude is really not comforting when you're trying to challenge for the lead.
Yeah, and, especially if maybe Daugherty was thinking, I'd like to take 1 lap or 2 just to not abuse the tires too much, so I've got really something good. And you've got a little gap behind you, it's easier to do that. You got a Salyer behind you, it's like, yeah, well, that strategy's gone. I guess I'm just going to live with it and go. But look how good these minis are once they get into the twisty bits.
Yeah, it's a really solid platform in every way for this class, especially when you put 2 of them together. But somehow Daugherty was able to flow speed through, it looks like probably Hogpen, to get back up to the back bumper down in turn 1. We'll kind of have to see how that ebb and flow plays out this lap.
You see that top 4 now has a pretty good break of almost 4 seconds back to Ian Schoen up on that curb and biking it, up on the bike as they call it here. Then Ratcliffe, Sheehy, Ruth, and Connor Kelleher has dropped a few spots here in the last couple of laps. He'd been running up in the 5th spot, and he's now sitting at 9th. Working their way down Madison Avenue. And for these cars, this straight's really long.
It is really long, and that uphill is not insignificant as, wow, look at the minis. Big power move for Ratcliffe, and it looks like Sheehy's going to go with him right around Ian Ratcliffe, but on the brakes, the Mazda 2 is stronger to the apex.
Yep, and you can see he was really aggressive on the brakes, was the number 80 of Ian Schoen, and was able to get in between those 2 here. But that was really a stout move by the 103 of Ratcliffe to be able to slide through like that and make it stick.
Yeah, the Mazdas with that tall gearing, they just kind of run out of steam when they hit the aero wall towards 100 miles an hour. So that's where a driver like Ian Schoen or even Matt Wolff, it's not the best car to be at the front of a pack. You see, he just doesn't have the legs.
Yeah, just cannot stave off the number 9 of Sheehy as he comes through now. Is there any kind of a counterpunch move here by Ian? And Ian looks really good over into the twisty bits, particularly 3 and 4. See if he can do anything to try and take a spot back. And then Corey Ruth not exactly letting this group go, just keeping them as close as he can here. Here you go, that wide line, carry that little bit more momentum, and then potentially just abuse the bumper of Steve Introne.
Yeah. And now that he's got a drafting partner, this is his favorite corner, gets underneath the back of Sheehy. It loosens him up just a little bit. Yep. But now that the Mazda can draft, this is going to take a new shape. But those minis are going to look to try to check out.
Yeah, but that just shows you how good that Mazda is. Once the twistier it gets, obviously, that car really comes to life just a little bit. And as you said, the minis are just sort of all-rounders. Not the best in a straight line, not the best in the twisty bits, but really good in everything.
And that's where having a good dance partner comes right in, as we've seen a couple of pairs of them around the track at this point. Introne and Ronan set personal best lap times last time through at the front, pulled out a second lead over Daugherty and Salyer, who are still just in lockstep with one another, but this battle is about 6 cars deep for 5th.
And Ronan, yeah, just to update you, everybody, he just set fast lap in the race, so doing a nice job. But here we go again. It is Sheehy now coming through, chasing Ratcliffe. And let's see if the number 80 of Schoen is able to do anything with this draft and just stay close. If he can just stay really close by the time they get down to turn 1, maybe he'll be able to make one of those moves that he's shown the ability to do. Then Ruth and Kelleher behind him. And now here comes the exchange as Sheehy pulls out. And wouldn't the smart move now be for Ratcliffe to let him go and just tuck in?
Yes, absolutely.
Work with each other. Don't counter punch or block. Try and drive away.
As counterintuitive as it is, lifting down the straightaway is part of the strategy in racecraft. Introne runs a little bit wide at one of these corners. Roller coaster at VIR now gets a little bit of a distance back to the 103 of Alex Ratcliffe, and that's not what he wants to see. He needs that draft.
It's only what, the 8th or 9th race you called.
Yeah,
I get it. But yeah, that problem, that was a problem for him because he can't afford to give that up. With the way that these minis are working, he wants to be a lot closer getting down into 1 so he can do something.
Fast lap of the race, David Daugherty from 3rd. We're going to continue to watch this battle, but I think the lead is not done yet.
No, it's certainly not. Yeah, it's now down. Well, it's over half a second still, but Daugherty served notice that he's got more in the quiver, more arrows in the quiver than maybe we thought at this point. This is that section of track where Schoen and that Mazda really flies you. He's opening the radius up. You can tell he wants to do something. Look at the run he gets. Is it enough to make the move? Not quite.
It's better this time. He was willing to throw it in there last time, and it lost him a lot of momentum, so I think that was a smart call.
Yep.
Now gives him this nice draft run flat out all the way from many seconds ago.
Well, and if he can, do this and just stay with those minis, that might give him a break with it, and to clear off from Corey Ruth and Connor Kelleher. But he got up on that one curb, and you could see it just hurt that momentum a little bit, and he's dropped back. That was not what he wanted to have happen here. And just to remind everybody, due to us now being in a time scenario, not a lap scenario, the next time Steve Introne comes by start-finish, he will pick up the white flag. We will be on our final lap here as this one continues here, and you can see, yeah, that's a problem for Ian Schoen. He's a little bit farther back than he wanted to be. I don't know if he's going to be able to do much in terms of the draft.
Looks like he's doing a great job, though. It may also be down to gearing. He may have an awkward shift there in the lower S's with the tall gearing from 2nd to 3rd in those Mazda 2s.
That is a group of, 7 cars right now. That's impressive, that are battling for that final spot in the top 5 behind Introne, Ronan, Daugherty, and Riley Salyer. Let's see, do we see that move now? Does Ratcliffe pull out and go by? No, he just elects to stay put. Oh, big move from deep here by Phillips. Couldn't quite get it down to the inside of Connor Kelleher, but he's got some pace too.
Big question is at the front, who's got what left, who has not shown what they can do as we come to the white flag. This battle for 5th has certainly been entertaining.
It has been, but now it's the battle for the medals here. And as they come by this time to start this last lap, now it's time to get racing.
It gets interesting when teammates have to take the gloves off. Now, this is what we've seen lap after lap. Roman takes the wide line and then gets a nice big bump draft for Steve Introne coming off that corner. That is not abnormal, and they do it again. So this is still coordinated. I don't think these guys are fighting for it yet, but I guarantee you Richard Roman wants this one.
Yeah, they will. Don't have any doubt about that. If he senses an opportunity, he's going for it. And what they just don't want to do is let Daugherty and Salyer get into this mix too much. They'd rather settle this between themselves. And of course, Daugherty, we saw that speed that he was able to put up, but he just has not been able to run them down and really get into this yet. All right, through the snake, that's been completed. Last time heading toward the climbing S's in South Bend.
We were speculating that Introne was at a little bit of a disadvantage in this section, and I wonder if Riley Salyer has the same problem. You see him kind of drop off of David Daugherty, so they always come back together. I think it's still going to become exciting towards the end of that back straightaway, but these two teammates at the front still have not shown that they're ready to race.
Yep. This line astern right through South Bend now, up into Oak Tree. And look at Daugherty. He has closed it up a bit, rolling some speed on the hammer here. Salyer drifting backwards just a little bit here, but he's got the opportunity for a potential multi-car tow here as they start doing the old bob and weave. And that might tell me that here we go. Now the gloves are off.
I'll tell you, Daugherty just nailed Oak Tree corner. That was picture perfect for what he needed to do, but it doesn't look like he's got enough steam at the top end for that Chevy Sonic. They do run out of breath just a little bit. Man, he's not quite there.
Nope, and Salyer has dropped. So it's a 3-car battle right now, but Daugherty makes up a lot of ground. Oh man, this is gonna be so close. Any mistake here, somebody's going to pay the price. You can see Daugherty showed the nose. Ronan went to cover it, and I think that was just a chess move by Daugherty, seeing if he could get Ronan off his line. Ronan didn't bite too much, and Salyer suddenly is right back in it, potentially for a bronze medal. To the line. It is a drafting battle. Is Ronan going to pop out, try and do something? Daugherty does not have enough left. Here we go, coming to the line. Ronan just misses it. It is Introne. Official margin of victory, 78 1/1000ths of a second, folks, with David Daugherty 4/10 back and completing this great battle. It is Sheehy in the John Player Special liveried. Beautiful Mini Cooper completing your top 5 with Ratcliffe and Introne right there. But what a finish. And I'll tell you what, Introne, one bobble, that's over. He drove a superb race, as did Ronan, who played a great wingman and was as clean as he could be when he decided it was time to attack.
Yeah, Richard Roman did. That was a fantastic team mentality for both of those drivers. And you're totally right. They're executing a high-risk, high-reward strategy, running in lockstep like that for so long. And they just nailed it. They nailed it.
Yeah, there was no question about that. Just absolutely superb. Daugherty earns himself another medal, and that will be his 17th medal in runoffs competition to go with all the golds that he has. So here are the provisional results here. You can see that margin of victory. Introne to Roman, then Daugherty, then Salyer completing the top 4. Sheehy, a really savvy drive up into the top 5. They just didn't have the pace of the guys up front, but nonetheless, really, really good. Then Alex Ratcliffe in 6th, Introne in 7th. John Phillips, when you think about where John Phillips qualified, he drove a smart race. That was 14th up into 8th. So he picked off a number of drivers there. Corey Ruth in the 9th spot, and Connor Kelleher completing the top 10. And look who set fast lap on the last lap.
Yeah, Riley Salyer gets the, he may not have got a medal, but he does get the purple fastest lap on our timing and scoring screen.
Yeah, he just benefited from that multi-car tow and just let it flow down through the rest of the lap here. But I'll tell you what a go. But here is how it's starting. You see Daugherty there in the silver Sonic trying to make a move on the inside. And really what he needed to do was somehow split those two minis. And he tried it there. He tried it on the restart. He could never quite get it done.
No, he seemed to know that those restarts and starts were going to be his time. He just didn't get it done either time. I don't think he even really made a mistake. He just couldn't quite pull it off. Rob Pekarczyk ran in that top 5 position for the entire first part of the race until this dramatic-looking incident with Matt Jufrey. A little tank slap turns into a big rollover. Then we get this restart.
And that was a pommel horse routine dismounts. That was really sharp.
And
then exactly. And then Pekarczyk having this little bit of a moment. And you see Matt Wolf there in the background running wide as well. And Matt had qualified 4th, got trained at the start and just was never back in it. And then down to the line for the checker, and it was this close. Here comes Roman. Gets up alongside, 78 1/1000 shy, and Introne. Pole to checkers. Absolutely stellar drive, but great teamwork between the two mini drivers. And I'll tell you what, with an 11-time gold medalist behind you working you over like that, to not make a mistake. And every time Daugherty tried something, Introne would just fade over, but he'd never make that big commitment where Daugherty could then counterpunch. Roman really was superb in his defense, and then very clean in his attack on the last lap.
And road racing like this is a fairly a very individual sport. It's one driver, one car. But if you've never endurance raced or you've never had the whole team around you or executed a team strategy like those two just did, the payoff is for both drivers and everyone involved. The strategist on the box at an endurance race, Richard Roman, has to be just as excited for Steve Introne and to have been a part of that win because it is a team ultimately that accomplished it. In my opinion, anyway. We'll see what Hayward finds out.
Yeah, what they should do is once they get the medals, is cut them in half, glue them together so they each get a piece of it, because that was just superb teamwork, no question. Good look there at that number 12, miniusa.com. Introne Racing entry, and what a race he put in. Look at Daugherty running up there. He wants to stick his head in and go, man, that was beautiful stuff. Daugherty will appreciate that. He's been in this game a long time, and he sees execution played like that. Look at Introne. I don't think he can believe it. He's just oblivious right now, just going, did I just win this thing?
Got to take it all in, man. Take it all in.
Yep, absolutely. Can't believe it. I love it. I love it. And I mean, when you're into SCCA racing, it is a club. And I learned this a long time ago when I joined it. The minute that I joined this club, I suddenly had a family. My family grew by like 40,000.
Yeah.
It's literally that special. And then when you win the pinnacle in the sport, it gets to you. And Hayward, you're right down there. You can see the emotion now.
Guys, this one's a special one for sure. There's a lot of emotion down here. Steve, a couple years ago, Laguna Seca, I walked onto a corner station. You were standing there. I said, what are you doing here? This is 2,600 miles from home. You said, I just love the runoffs. I had to come and flag it. What does it feel like to win it?
It's unbelievable. That's all I can say. I cried that whole lap. I mean, it takes a lot to get here, And I got great support from my family, my wife, my friends, the B-Speckers. I got great sponsors. This is like a year's worth of work to do this. And I had a great partner all week, Rich Roman. He deserves this just as much as I do because we ran together, we had a plan that we created a couple months ago, and it worked. It worked perfect.
Was there a point in time that you guys threw the plan out and started racing each other, or did he push you all the way?
It's a good question.
I'll ask him.
I think that last lap, it was go at it, but he was very fair, which is why I appreciated running with him. Him and I are very fair racers. So it was great. It was unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
You get one more lap around this track. It's a victory lap for the national champion. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, I'm going to call out all the volunteers again, right? Because I'm a flagger. My mom's a time and score. My father, who passed away just this last year, is for him. He did everything for SCCA. So let's go. Let's go.
All right. So a victory lap for Steve. Anybody going with him? The whole family's getting in the Mini. Every single one. We're going to grab Richard, the silver medal here. Last lap. What was your strategy? What were you thinking about the last lap?
The only turn I was beating Steve all the time was the last turn. And that was the only shot I had. If he screwed up just a little bit, I tried. Kind of gave him a little tap. I had Daugherty behind me, multi-time champion. I didn't want to lose to him. So me and Steve had a great plan beginning of the weekend, and I stuck to it. And I'm happy with second.
Congratulations on the podium. We're going to get David. Hey, David! We're going to get Mr. Daugherty up here. It's just another medal for David Daugherty, just another one. Did you have anything for him?
No, I had nothing for them. They did what we did last year, what John and I did last year. They did it perfectly. They started to race the first half of the last lap, though, and I was right back on his bumper, and he was like, "Oh, snap!"
Family show.
And he went back to helping Steve. It couldn't happen to a better family. Steve deserves it. He worked his butt off last year. He drove great this year. I think if he had raced him, he might have been able to beat him. But they had a plan. They did it. They were great. It was great.
Well, congratulations to you on another runoffs podium. We're going to go back upstairs.
Thank you, Hayward.
Well, I'll tell you what, if and when we come back for the runoffs to VIR, I hope Introne and Roman are back, and I know that Steve will say, it's your turn, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be helping you. And, that is a classic example right there of, people that start, if you wonder, how do I get into racing? start flagging. Because you learn, you're watching, you're studying, you're seeing how it all plays out, and it gives you a golden opportunity to, when you get into the car, you have a better understanding of what to do, and you're just sharing the sport with so many people. That's going to wrap up our coverage of what was a compelling run to the gold in B-Spec. Congratulations once again to Steve Introne for the gold, Roman for the silver, and David Daugherty another podium here at the Runoffs. On behalf of Tom O'Gorman and Hayward Wagner, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you with us here at this 59th running of SCCA's National Championship Runoffs. I'm Greg Creamer. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.